are you?
I'm really, really good, and I'm happy to see you. And
Wonderful, wonderful.
Of our global family, and I really, really love being here, and I feel so humbled.
She was worth millions, but money couldn't save her from heartbreak. At 81, Diana Ross is finally admitting what we all suspected: the shocking affair with Motown legend while he was married, the secret love child she hid for years, and the devastating addiction that landed her in jail. Today, we're exposing what really happened behind closed doors and why Diana kept quiet until now. Diana Ross was born on March 26, 1944, in Detroit, Michigan. Her mother named her Diane, but due to a mistake on the birth certificate, it was recorded as Diana. Despite that, her family and close friends always called her Diane. She was the second of 6 children in a close-knit family. They lived in the north end of Detroit, and one of their neighbors was a young Smokey Robinson. Life took a hard turn when Diana was 7. Her mother got seriously sick with tuberculosis, and the children were sent to live with their grandparents in Alabama. Her grandfather was a pastor there. When her mother got better, the family came back to Detroit. On her 14th birthday, Diana's family moved into the Brewster Douglas housing projects, a tough area in Detroit. She started high school at Cass Tech, a school known for training future professionals. Diana didn't just focus on her classes. She had big dreams. She wanted to be a fashion designer, so she took every class she could on clothing design and tailoring. She also worked part-time, becoming the first black bus girl at Hudson's, a major department store in Detroit. To earn a bit more, she styled hair for her neighbors. All this while juggling modeling and cosmetology classes, which she said were partly funded by Smokey Robinson. While still a teenager, she joined a girl group called the Primettes. They were the female version of the Primes, a male group that included Paul Williams. Florence Ballard was already in the group, and they were soon joined by Mary Wilson and Betty McGlone. The group began performing at small events and talent shows. After winning a contest in Ontario, they got invited to audition for Motown Records. At the time, Motown was just getting started, and Diana thought this was her big break. She turned to her old neighbor, Smokey Robinson, and asked him to help the group get a proper audition. Smokey agreed, but only if they allowed Motown to borrow their guitarist, Marv Tarplin, for an upcoming tour. Diana was fine with that trade. Tarplin would go on to play with Smokey for decades. When the Primettes finally performed for Motown, Berry Gordy happened to walk by. He heard Diana singing and stopped in his tracks. He loved her voice, but when he found out the girls were still in high school, he told them to graduate first. But they didn't give up. Every day, they hung around Motown's studio, offering to help however they could. They clapped on other people's records, sang background vocals, and made themselves useful. That persistence paid off. They got to record some songs, including a couple where Diana sang lead. During this time, Diana also styled the group's hair, did their makeup, and even designed their costumes. When one of the original members, Betty McGlone, left, Barbara Martin joined in. Then came a big decision. Motown told them they'd be signed, but only if they changed their name. Florence Ballard was the only one at the studio that day, so the task fell to her. She picked the Supremes from a list. Diana didn't like it at first. She thought people would confuse them with a male group, but it stuck. On January 15, 1961, Motown officially signed them as the Supremes. A year later, Barbara Martin left, and the group continued as a trio. In 1963, they finally had a real hit with When the Love Light Starts Shining Through His Eyes. It made it to number 23 on the Billboard charts. That was the turning point. By the end of the year, Berry Gordy chose Diana to be the group's lead singer. That decision would change everything, not just for Diana, but for the future of Motown itself. In June 1964, while touring with Dick Clark's Cavalcade of Stars, Diana Ross and her group had their big breakthrough. Their song, Where Did Our Love Go?, hit number 1, and from there, everything changed. Between August 1964 and May 1967, the trio, Ross, Mary Wilson, and Florence Ballard, sang on 10 number 1 hits. All of them also charted in the UK, making the group a massive success both at home and overseas. They became Motown's biggest act of the decade. As their fame grew, Ross slowly started taking the spotlight. She answered questions in interviews that were meant for the other girls. She asked for more money than the others and even began calling herself Diana instead of Diane, which confused Wilson and Ballard because that's how they had always known her. Behind the scenes, things weren't smooth. Ballard struggled with her weight, had issues with alcohol, and often didn't behave professionally. In July 1967, Motown boss Berry Gordy fired her. He replaced her with Cindy Birdsong, who had sung with Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. That same year, Gordy renamed the group Diana Ross and the Supremes. This change wasn't just about ego, it was business. With Diana as the clear star, promoters could charge more money for shows. Gordy had thought about launching Ross as a solo artist in 1966, but at the time, the group was still too successful to break apart. So Ross stayed until 1970. During this time, the group continued to perform, even appearing as singing nuns in a 1968 episode of Tarzan. But behind the scenes, more changes were happening. On many songs recorded after 1968, Ross was the only original Supreme actually singing. Backup vocals were often done by professional session singers like the Andantes, or in some cases, Julia and Maxine Waters and Johnny Bristol. Still, Wilson and Birdsong remained active and recorded some tracks. But the pressure on Ross was growing. According to her autobiography, Berry Gordy pushed her so hard that she developed anorexia. During a concert in Boston, she collapsed from exhaustion and had to be taken to the hospital. By 1968, Ross was starting to break away. She appeared alone in TV specials like TCB, GIT on Broadway, and shows hosted by Dinah Shore and Bob Hope. In the summer of 1969, Gordy made it official. Ross would leave the group by the end of the year. That July, she began recording solo material. One of the key steps in launching her solo career was introducing the Jackson 5 to the world. Although Ross wasn't the one who discovered them, Motown's publicity team gave her the credit. She helped introduce the young group on stage and television, including an appearance on the Hollywood Palace. Then, in November 1969, Ross confirmed in Billboard that she was leaving the Supremes. Interestingly, the song "Someday We'll Be Together" was meant to be Ross's first solo release, but Motown decided to put it out as a Supremes track instead. It became the group's last #1 hit and the final Billboard chart topper of the entire 1960s. Ross said goodbye to the Supremes on January 14, 1970, during a live show at the Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas. It was the end of one era and the beginning of another. In 1970, Diana Ross stepped out on her own. She had already become a star with the Supremes, but now it was time to prove she could shine solo. Her debut album didn't just make waves, it delivered two timeless songs, "Reach Out" and "Touch Somebody's Hand," and "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." That last one went all the way to #1. She followed it quickly with "Everything Is Everything" and "Surrender." And by 1971, the UK had fallen for her too, sending "I'm Still Waiting" to the top of their charts. That same year, Ross got her own TV special. Simply called Diana, it featured rising stars, the Jackson 5. But something bigger was already in motion. Ross was heading to the big screen. She began working on Lady Sings the Blues, playing Billie Holiday. It was a bold move. Some critics didn't think she could pull it off. But when the film hit theaters in 1972, she shocked them all. She earned an Oscar nomination and won a Golden Globe for her performance. Jazz writer Leonard Feather, who knew Billie personally, praised Ross for capturing Holiday's spirit. The film's soundtrack became a hit of its own, topping the Billboard 200 and selling 2 million copies. That same year, Ross also contributed to a children's album with the song "When We Grow Up." In 1973, she hit #1 again in the United States with "Touch Me in the Morning." Then came a duet album with Marvin Gaye, Diana and Marvin, which became a global success. That year also saw her touring Japan. where she made history by being invited to meet Empress Nagako at the Imperial Palace. A year later, she stood on Hollywood's biggest stage, co-hosting the Academy Awards as the first African-American woman to do so. Her next film was Mahogany in 1975, where she played a fashion designer turned superstar model. She even designed the costumes herself, but behind the scenes, things were rocky. The original director was fired, Berry Gordy took over, and tensions rose between him and Ross. She left the production before filming was done, and they had to use a stand-in to finish her scenes. Critics weren't kind, but the movie still made money. And the theme song, Do You Know Where You're Going To, became her third #1 single in the United States. By 1976, Ross was chasing the disco wave with Love Hangover, a slow burn that exploded into a dance floor anthem. She launched her An Evening with Diana Ross tour, which was so successful it landed her a 2-week run on Broadway and an Emmy-nominated TV special. She performed dramatic tributes to legendary performers like Josephine Baker and Bessie Smith, and even won a special Tony Award. Her next albums, Baby It's Me and Ross, didn't make a big splash, but Ross had her eyes on the movies again. This time it was The Wiz, a reimagined version of The Wizard of Oz. Ross convinced the producers to cast her as Dorothy, even though the role originally belonged to a younger actress, Stephanie Mills. Her version of Dorothy became a schoolteacher instead of a girl. Michael Jackson joined her as the Scarecrow. Their duet, Ease On Down the Road, had some success, and their ensemble track, Brand New Day, became a hit overseas. But The Wiz didn't deliver. It cost $24 million to make and barely earned $21 million at the box office. Even with TV rights sold to CBS for over $10 million, the film ended up losing money. It was the most expensive musical ever made at the time, and its failure hurt both Ross's film career and the momentum of black-led cinema in Hollywood. Still, Ross didn't stop. In 1979, she released The Boss, which thrilled dance fans and gave her another #1 dance hit. That summer, she took over The Tonight Show as guest host and welcomed big names like George Carlin, Linda Carter, and Muhammad Ali. She also headlined a lavish HBO concert special, filmed in Las Vegas, making a dramatic entrance by walking through a movie screen. Later that year, she performed during the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Then came 1980. That year, Ross released Diana, the most successful album of her career. It was produced by Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards of Chic. Upside Down shot to #1. I'm Coming Out became an anthem. She kept the momentum going with the film theme song, It's My Turn, which also became a hit. But the biggest moment was still to come. She teamed up with Lionel Richie for Endless Love, a soaring ballad that topped the charts and became her 6th and final #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100. It was a perfect closing note to a decade where Diana Ross didn't just stay relevant, she redefined what it meant to be a solo superstar. At the end of 1980, Diana Ross made a bold decision. She was ready to leave Motown after more than 2 decades. She was given a $250,000 severance package, but it wasn't about the money. RCA Records came in with an offer that changed music history, a $20 million deal over 7 years. It gave Ross full control over her music. Before saying yes, she asked Berry Gordy if he could match the offer. He couldn't. So, on May 20th, 1981, Diana Ross signed the most expensive recording deal ever made at that time. Her first RCA album, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, came out in October 1981. It sold over 1 million copies. The title track, along with Mirror Mirror, became hits. A few months later, on May 6, 1982, Ross received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Then came Silk Electric, with the hit song Muscles, written and produced by Michael Jackson. It became a top 10 hit and was nominated for a Grammy, helping the album go gold. Her next album, simply titled Ross, leaned toward pop rock. Though it featured Pieces of Ice, a top 40 single, it didn't generate much success. In July 1983, she performed a free concert in Central Park to raise money for a children's playground in her name. Halfway through the show, heavy rain hit, and the performance was cut short. She promised to return the next day, and she did. But the storm had destroyed all the merchandise intended to raise funds. Critics, including New York's mayor, questioned the cost of the two events. In response, Ross personally handed over a $250,000 check to cover the playground. It was finally completed 3 years later. In 1984, she released Swept Away. It included All of You, a duet with Julio Iglesias, and Missing You, written by Lionel Richie as a tribute to Marvin Gaye. The album went gold. In 1985, Eaten Alive was produced by Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees. The album included 2 major hits, Eaten Alive, a collaboration with Michael Jackson and Gibb, and Chain Reaction, which topped charts in the UK, Australia, South Africa, Israel, and Ireland. The music videos helped boost their popularity, especially the one for Eaten Alive, which took inspiration from the horror film The Island of Dr. Moreau. That same year, Ross was part of We Are the World, the global charity single that sold over 20 million copies. But her next album, Red Hot Rhythm and Blues, in 1987, didn't find much success in the United States, though its accompanying TV special won 2 Emmy Awards. By 1988, her time with RCA was over. She started talking with Berry Gordy again. When she found out he planned to sell Motown, she tried to talk him out of it. He sold it anyway, but the new owners offered Ross a return to the label. With part ownership, she accepted. That year, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as part of the Supremes. She also recorded the theme for The Land Before Time, If We Hold On Together, which hit #1 in Japan. Her 1989 album, Workin' Overtime, didn't do well in the United States, though it saw better results in Japan and the UK. Her later albums, The Force Behind the Power, 1991, Take Me Higher, 1995, and Every Day is a New Day, 1999, had limited commercial success in America, each selling about 100,000 copies. But the UK welcomed her back. In 1991, she became one of the few Americans to perform at the Royal Variety Performance for the Queen. The Force Behind the Power went platinum there with the hit When You Tell Me That You Love Me, reaching #2 on the charts. The album produced 9 international singles, including One Shining Moment. In 1993, she returned to acting with Out of Darkness, a TV movie that earned her a Golden Globe nomination. The following year, One Woman, The Ultimate Collection, hit #1 in the UK and went quadruple platinum. That same year, during the 1994 FIFA World Cup opening ceremony, she took a penalty shot on live TV. The goalposts were rigged to fall when she scored, but she missed. It became one of her most talked about moments. In 1996, she performed at the Super Bowl halftime show and released Diana Ross, Live in Japan. That May, she received the World Music Award for lifelong contribution to the music industry. Later that year, the album Voice of Love came out, followed by the Japanese release of A Gift of Love in early 1997. In May, she performed with opera legends Placido Domingo and José Carreras in Taiwan. She also inducted the Jackson 5 into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. By 1998, she was back in the spotlight as host of Motown 40. And in 1999, Diana Ross was named the most successful female artist in UK chart history. Madonna would soon surpass her. That same year, she shocked the audience at the MTV Video Music Awards by touching Lil' Kim's exposed breast, live on stage, a moment that instantly made headlines. She ended the decade with a TV movie called Double Platinum, co-starring Brandy. It aired just before her new album, Every Day is a New Day, which gave her another top 10 UK hit, Not Over You Yet. Despite the ups and downs in America, Diana Ross remained a powerhouse overseas, especially in the UK, where her legacy as a music icon only kept growing. In 1976, Diana Ross reunited with Mary Wilson to attend the funeral of Florence Ballard, their former Supremes bandmate, who had died that February. It was a brief moment of connection after years of distance. Then, in 1983, another reunion happened. Ross agreed to join Wilson and Cindy Birdsong for the Motown 25 TV special, but it didn't go smoothly. The Supremes had no time to rehearse, and a planned medley was scrapped at the last minute. Instead of sticking to the show's script, which told them to recreate a classic Ed Sullivan performance, Wilson and Birdsong decided to follow Ross's movements on stage. And when the group started singing "Someday We'll Be Together," a song Wilson hadn't originally performed, Wilson stepped forward and began singing lead. Things became tense. Later in the show, Wilson tried to introduce Berry Gordy, unaware that the job had been assigned to Ross. Ross quickly stepped in, gently pushing down Wilson's microphone and saying, "It's been taken care of," before reintroducing Gordy herself. That moment never made the final cut of the show, but it still leaked to the press. People magazine even reported that Ross had elbowed Wilson aside to stay in the spotlight. Years passed, and in 1999, Ross entered talks with SFX Entertainment, a huge concert promoter, about a major tour. They planned for Ross to perform solo, but include a Supremes segment. Eventually, the idea shifted to a full-on Supremes reunion tour. Ross agreed, and as co-producer, invited all surviving former Supremes to join. John Terrell and Suzai Green declined. Linda Lawrence and Sherry Payne, who were already touring together as former ladies of the Supremes, were interested. Ross also reached out to Wilson and Birdsong. Birdsong allowed Wilson to negotiate for both of them, but talks quickly fell apart. Ross and SFX offered $4 million for 30 shows, but Wilson said no. She wanted more input and better terms. After SFX's deadline passed without an agreement, Lawrence and Payne signed on. Despite past tensions, Lawrence and Payne said working with Ross was smooth. The trio performed together on Today, The Oprah Winfrey Show, and VH1 Divas 2000. In June 2000, the Return to Love tour kicked off to a packed crowd in Philadelphia and ended at Madison Square Garden. Diana Ross's love life was never simple. It started with Berry Gordy, the man who ran Motown and helped make her a star. Their relationship began in 1965 and lasted several years, though it was mostly kept quiet. In August 1971, Diana gave birth to a daughter, Rhonda. But 2 months into the pregnancy, she married music executive Robert Ellis Silberstein. He knew the baby wasn't his, but he raised Rhonda like his own anyway. For 13 years, Rhonda believed Berry Gordy was just Uncle BB. Diana didn't tell her the truth until she was a teenager. Still, Silberstein stayed in the picture and had 2 more daughters with Diana, Tracy and Chudney. But by 1977, the marriage fell apart, and Diana was on her own again. Her story with Motown didn't just involve Berry Gordy. During the 1960s, when the label was booming, Smokey Robinson revealed that he and Diana had an affair too. At the time, Smokey was married to Claudette, one of his bandmates in The Miracles. He said the relationship just happened. It wasn't planned. They were working closely at the studio, and somewhere between the lyrics and late-night sessions, things crossed a line. Smokey didn't share this publicly until 2023, when he was 83 years old. But instead of guilt, he spoke with honesty. He said the experience taught him that people can love more than one person at a time. He wasn't proud, but he wasn't ashamed either. To him, it was part of life. Then came Arne Næss Jr., the Norwegian shipping magnate. They met on a beach in Barbados in 1985. Diana was with her kids, he was with his. He wasn't into music, but they clicked right away. A year later, they got married in a massive ceremony. Stevie Wonder performed. Everything seemed perfect. They had 2 sons, Ross and Evan, and shared a life filled with travel, luxury, and laughter. But behind the scenes, things were falling apart. In 1999, Diana found out about their separation the same way the rest of the world did, through a media interview. Arne casually mentioned they had split. No warning, no conversation, just public humiliation. And it got worse. Diana soon learned that Arne had been seeing another woman, a Norwegian named Camilla Astrup. Camilla was pregnant. The betrayal was brutal. Diana, in her mid-50s, thought she had found stability. Instead, she was left blindsided. The divorce was finalized in 2000. Arne moved on with Camilla and had 2 more sons with her. The pain hit hard, especially because it mirrored something from Diana's past, how she'd once hidden Rhonda's true father from Robert Silberstein. It was like life had come full circle. Still, Diana later told Oprah that Arne was the love of her life. After the breakup, things started to spiral. Diana tried to keep it together, but her close friends saw the cracks. She leaned heavily on alcohol to cope. In May 2002, she checked into rehab at Promises in Malibu, a place known for treating celebrities. She stayed for 30 days, hoping to recover quietly. But the damage was already done. That summer, she canceled her concert tour without much explanation. Then, on December 30th, 2002, things hit a dangerous peak. In the early hours of that morning, Diana was seen driving the wrong way down a road in Tucson, Arizona. Police pulled her over and found her clearly intoxicated. She was polite, but couldn't walk straight, touch her nose, or recite the alphabet correctly. Her blood alcohol level was 0.20%, more than double the legal limit. She was arrested for extreme DUI. It was a shocking sight. Diana Ross, the music legend, behind bars. In 2004, she was sentenced to 48 hours in jail. She tried to serve it near her Connecticut home, but when authorities found out she wasn't doing the full time, they made her return to Arizona. There, she completed her sentence properly, 2 full days behind bars. Diana Ross had lived through fame, love, and heartbreak, but nothing prepared her for the phone call she got on January 13, 2004. Her ex-husband, Arne Nys Jr., had died in a mountain climbing accident in South Africa. Even though they had divorced 4 years earlier, the news hit her like a tidal wave. Arne wasn't just a chapter in her life. He was the father of her 2 sons, Ross, Arne, and Evan, and had been her partner for 14 years. He was 66 years old, a wealthy Norwegian shipping magnate and a seasoned mountaineer. He had taken risks his whole life, but this time, the mountain didn't let him come back down. Without hesitation, Diana flew to Norway with her sons to attend Arne's funeral. For someone who had always been guarded in public, what happened next surprised everyone. She gave an emotional interview on Norwegian television. Fans had never seen her like that before. Open, raw, and deeply human. Her voice stayed calm, but the pain in her words was impossible to miss. Even after their divorce, she spoke of Arne as someone she still deeply loved. It was clear their bond hadn't ended when the marriage did. It was the kind of heartbreak that doesn't fade easily. But Diana Ross didn't let grief define her. In 2025, at the age of 80, she walked on stage in Brooklyn's King's Theater and reminded the world who she was. The crowd roared when she stood under the lights, not just because of the music, but because of her defiance. "I'll never retire," she shouted, and the room exploded with cheers. The words weren't just dramatic, they were a promise. A few weeks before her 81st birthday, she was still singing with the energy of her teenage self. She had been performing since she was 13, and that fire was still there. On the second night, she told the audience, "They'll drag me off the stage." The show wasn't just a trip down memory lane, it was alive. She mixed up the set list, tossed in Supreme's hits like "Love Child" and "You Can't Hurry Love," and followed up with her solo anthems like "I'm Coming Out" and "Theme from Mahogany." At one point, she forgot the lyrics to a song, laughed it off, and motioned for the band to take over with solos. It didn't throw her off. If anything, it made the moment even better. That's who Diana Ross is. Unshaken, unfiltered, and unforgettable.